For 10,000 years, the Virexian Galactic Empire stood unchallenged. They bent stars into weapons, crushed rebellions with anti-reality bombs. Entire species vanished from history at their command. In every corner of the galaxy, their sigil burned like an eternal flame. Order through fear. Then came the anomaly. One of their patrol fleets, standard sweep, nothing serious, picked up something odd near the Perseid Rift. A single ship, human-coded, but something was wrong. The signal was encrypted with a format no one had seen before. The hull shape didn't match any Earth-class design. It had no heat signature, no pulse, no visible propulsion. The Empire thought it was a bluff, a decoy, a trick, until it moved, and the stars around it bent. One Virexian admiral, watching from orbit, leaned forward and muttered, That can't be a human ship, that's impossible. It wasn't just advanced, it was beyond understanding. The material it was made of didn't reflect light. The space around it trembled like it was afraid. They fired first. Naturally. It didn't dodge, didn't raise shields. The attack never reached. Space itself folded in front of the blasts. Then the warship responded, not with violence, but with reality distortion. Entire sections of the Virexian fleet simply disappeared. No explosion, no escape pods, just absence. Panic spread through the command net. They tried to communicate. They tried to retreat. Then came the message. Calm, cold, human. This is Sentinel-class Exile. You entered forbidden space. Leave now. There will be no second message. The Galactic Empire had never retreated before. This time they ran, and, from that day, a rumor spread. One whispered in every Imperial hall. Earth didn't just build ships, they built monsters to guard the dark. For 10,000 years, the Virexian Galactic Empire ruled with an iron fist. Planets burned in their name. Civilizations vanished without a whisper. They believed they were untouchable, unchallenged, and eternal. Then one day, something changed. It started quietly. A routine patrol, just a sweep near the Perseid Rift. 5 ships, well-armed, well-trained, passing through a dark corner of space no one had thought about in centuries. Their job? Scan for anomalies, clear minor threats, and return. A boring mission. But on the 3rd day, one of their scanners picked up a signal. It was strange, tight band, encrypted, and old. The encryption didn't match any known species in the Empire's database. It was like a whisper from a ghost. The fleet captain, Varnox Teal, frowned. Is this a trap? He asked. Could be pirates. But pirates didn't use ancient encryption keys, and they didn't transmit from cold, dead space. The source was a single object, stationary, parked near the edge of a dying moon. From a distance, it looked like a rock or maybe a long-forgotten satellite. But as they got closer, the object's details started to disturb them. It wasn't a rock, it was a ship, but not like any they'd ever seen. Black. Not shiny, not metallic, just black. Like it absorbed light itself. No reflections, no markings, no engine glow. It floated in space like a shadow that didn't belong. Its shape wasn't smooth or streamlined like Virexian ships. It was angular, jagged, wrong, like something carved out of a nightmare. And it was dead silent. No life signs, no energy pulses, no movement. Still, Captain Teal approached. Let's scan it. Maybe we found a relic. The scan began. Nothing came back. Not low readings. Nothing. As if the scanner's signals refused to touch it. The crew grew nervous. One of the officers said, Captain, this thing is giving me chills. I think we should leave. Teal didn't listen. He ordered a probe to launch. As the drone left the hangar and approached the ship, everyone watched the feed on the central display. The probe got within 500 meters. Then, static. The feed cut out. The probe was gone. No explosion, No impact, just gone. That's when the ship moved. Not slowly, not like a machine turning on. It shifted, instantly. One moment it was still. The next, it had rotated. Fast, perfect, precise, so that its pointed nose now faced directly at the Virexian fleet. Not a sound, not a signal. But everyone felt it, a pressure, a presence. Captain Teal whispered, "That's not possible. That can't be human." But the ship was human-coded. The records confirmed it. A Terran signature buried deep in the original signal, and that made no sense. Earth had been gone for centuries. Humans were extinct, or so they'd thought. The last Terran war was ancient history. The Empire had written them off as a species that burned too hot and died too fast. So then, what was this? Back on the Virexian homeworld, the footage was reviewed by the Imperial Science Corps. They paused on one frame of the ship, when the stars behind it appeared distorted, as if the ship was bending light, bending space. They sent a reply to Captain Teal, "Do not engage. Observe only. Await reinforcements." But the message came too late. Teal's pride got the better of him. He was a decorated officer. He'd never backed down from a threat before. He ordered the fleet to fire. 5 ships, 20 torpedoes, 4 plasma beams, and a kinetic rail cannon, all fired, all missed. But not because the target dodged. No, space in front of the ship folded, warped, the weapons curved. Not naturally, impossibly. They twisted mid-flight, veered off course, and spun into the void like they'd lost their reason to exist. The crew stood in silence. Then, the warship responded. Not with weapons, with reality. One of Teal's ships vanished. No explosion, no fire. It just blinked out. Another ship began spinning uncontrollably before collapsing into a ball of molten metal. The third's crew began screaming over comms, screams that didn't sound like any language, as if reality inside the ship had changed. Captain Teal tried to order a retreat. He screamed, "Full thrust! Get us out of here!" But the controls didn't respond. Every system was dark, dead, silent. That's when the voice came. Clear, calm, human, through every speaker, every neural link. "This is Sentinel class. Exile. You entered forbidden space. Leave now. There will be no second message." And just like that, the signal cut. The remaining 2 ships, what was left of them, drifted aimlessly. A few crew members made it out in escape pods. They floated for hours before they were picked up by a nearby merchant ship. What they described made no sense, but their footage matched. The exile didn't kill them out of aggression. It responded like a guard dog, precise, efficient without mercy. Back in the Imperial capital, panic spread through the highest ranks. The Emperor watched the footage himself. For the first time in 5,000 years, his clawed hand trembled. He called an emergency session of the War Council. They asked the central question everyone feared. If this is human, what else have we forgotten about them? No one had an answer. Then a young analyst, a half-blood named Nara Valari, brought a file from deep in the Terran archives. She was one of the only ones in the Empire who could read the old Earth codes. "It's not just a ship," she said quietly. "It's a sentinel." They asked her what that meant. She looked at them, nervous, small yet certain, and said, "It's not designed to explore, or to colonize, or even to fight wars. It was built to wait, to watch, to guard something. Something the rest of the galaxy was never meant to see." Her voice trembled. "And now, it's awake." The council chamber went silent. The Empire, proud and ancient, had never backed down from a threat. But in that moment, every person in that room understood something simple and terrifying. This was not a war they could win, because this wasn't a warship. It was a promise made by a species that had once burned through stars, tasted extinction, and then chose silence. A promise that if anyone came too close to what they had buried, they would return. They had returned. And now, the stars themselves whispered it in every corner of the galaxy. Earth didn't just build ships. They built monsters to guard the dark. The Virexian Empire believed Earth was dead. They had written it in the books of history. The humans destroyed themselves in the final war. Their world turned to ash. Their colonies faded. Their signals stopped. But now, one human ship had returned. No, not returned. Awakened. After the Sentinel class, exile destroyed the Virexian patrol fleet. A strange fear began to spread, not through the people but through the high command. Fear of the unknown. Fear of the old. Fear of something even the Empire couldn't control. The Emperor summoned his most trusted minds, the science priors, the code keepers, and the Lord of Signals. Inside the deepest chamber of the Citadel, a small figure stepped forward, half human, half Virexian, Nara Valari. Nara wasn't a soldier. She wasn't a warrior. She was a translator of forgotten things. She stood before them, nervous but brave, holding a small datapad. The signal from the exile was not random, she said. It carried an ancient Terran signature. But this signature hasn't been seen for over 600 years. The Emperor's third eye narrowed. Explain. Nara took a breath. It's a beacon code, a protocol from something called the Last Sentinel of Sol. It means this ship wasn't on patrol. It was sleeping, hidden, until someone came too close. Someone asked, "Too close to what?" Nara looked up. "To the truth." The room fell silent. Meanwhile, far from the capital, another problem had started. A border colony near the Perseid Rift sent a distress call. They had picked up an energy echo, massive, cold, and impossible. It wasn't coming from the exile, it was something else. Another signal. Same encryption. Same design. And then the signal vanished. Gone. Just like the patrol fleet. The Empire's response was fast. They couldn't show weakness. A fleet of 50 ships was launched under warlord HFY, a monster in Virexian armor, known for burning entire cities without a blink. He had one order: find and destroy whatever was in that rift. He entered the dark space with fire in his eyes and arrogance in his voice. But he didn't understand what he was walking into. When his fleet arrived, they saw the exile again. It hadn't moved far. Still silent. Still black, still watching. HFY smirked. "One ship?" he growled. "I have 50. He opened a channel. "Unidentified Terran vessel. You are trespassing in Virexian domain. Power down and prepare for destruction." There was no reply, so he ordered the first strike. A swarm of singularity missiles charged with gravity-bending tech launched toward the exile. They didn't explode. They didn't even reach. The moment the missiles crossed into the ship's radius, they stopped existing. Just vanished. No flash. No damage, just nothing. And then came the voice again. Soft, cold, human, but this time not on the radio. Inside every mind. "This is Sentinel class. Exile. You entered forbidden space. You were warned. You ignored. No shouting. No anger. Just a statement." And then the fleet screamed. Ships began disappearing in strange patterns. Some sliced into clean halves. Others turned inside out. One crew watched in horror as their own ship folded like paper, their screams frozen mid-air. HFY tried to fire again. His weapon console showed nothing. No ships, no energy, no space. He was floating in absence, and then even he disappeared. Just like that. 50 warships gone, not destroyed, erased. The Empire's sensors lost all contact. In the war room, alarms blared. Officials shouted, "This is impossible. No one has this power, not even us." But the evidence was clear. The exile didn't fight like any known species. It didn't use weapons. It used rules of space, time, and existence itself. It was like the ship rewrote reality. And then, for the first time, something happened that terrified the Empire even more. It stopped. The exile powered down again. No light. No sound, just silence. But this time another signal echoed, not from the exile, from deeper in the system. Another signature. Another ship? Nara, still locked inside the Citadel for study, looked over the code and turned pale. This encryption, she whispered. It's not the exile. The Emperor leaned forward. What is it then? She looked up with eyes full of dread. It's something older. In the days that followed, something strange began to happen across the galaxy. On distant outposts, strange things were reported. A cargo ship near the outer rim claimed their clock skipped 4 hours. But no one aged. A mining rig in the Harkon belt exploded, not from sabotage, but because its atoms rearranged into salt. A scout ship sent to observe Sol's outer system disappeared. When it reappeared 10 minutes later, the crew had aged 83 years. All of them were dead, white-haired skeletons. Something was wrong with space itself. It was like the laws of reality were leaking from Sol. The Empire called it Terran contamination, but Nara had another word for it. Memory. She believed. The exile wasn't alone anymore. It had called something. Something buried. Something waiting. She begged the Council. You have to stop sending ships. The more you disturb it, the more it responds. This isn't a defense system, this is a prison. The Council laughed. A prison? What kind of prison erases matter? Nara replied softly. The kind built by people who feared what they had become. And suddenly the room felt colder. The Empire had always believed Earth was destroyed by war. But maybe Earth had destroyed itself on purpose, not because they were weak, but because they were strong enough to know their darkness. What if humanity left not because they lost, but because they chose to leave before they became something worse? The Emperor, now restless, turned to his final weapon, Project Thronebreaker, a war device the size of a moon, designed to unmake stars, a planet killer that didn't destroy with bombs, but with math. It rewrote equations of reality, collapsed the rules of time, broke space apart like clay. It was sent toward the exile with full escort. No diplomacy, no warnings. It was a final threat. Submit or die. But as the Thronebreaker entered the rift, something happened. All across the galaxy, people felt a pressure, not pain, not fear. Presence, like someone was watching, not with eyes, with intention. Every ship near Sol saw something rise, not from Earth, from Pluto. Beneath its frozen crust, a shape began to move. Not mechanical, not metal, but something alive and impossible. And in that moment, all comms from the Thronebreaker were lost. 1 second it was there, the next it wasn't. No explosion. No flash. Just silence. The escorts vanished too. All that remained was one word, repeated on every channel across the Empire, not spoken, burned into every screen. Remember, Nara saw it first. It was in old Earth language, the same word carved into the walls of ancient bunkers. The last word spoken before humanity vanished. She cried softly. They never left, she whispered. They just stopped answering. For the first time in recorded history, the Virexian Galactic Empire had no plan, no strategy, no orders, only silence. The disappearance of Project Thronebreaker, its entire fleet gone without a trace, had left the High Command in shambles. This wasn't a defeat. It was worse. It was a message. And the message was clear. You are not welcome here. In every part of the galaxy, whispers grew louder. Among soldiers, among citizens, among slaves and scientists. Some called it the human curse, others, the ghost empire. But deep down, they all knew the truth. Humanity never died. It had simply stepped away. And now, it was awake again. Nara Valari was kept under high guard, not as a prisoner, but as something stranger. She had knowledge no one else had. She could read the old Terran signals, and the Empire feared her, respected her, and needed her all at once. They kept her in a crystal cell at the heart of the Imperial Citadel. Not metal, not stone. Crystal, a material that couldn't be bent, cracked, or distorted by the strange energy now leaking through space. They didn't trust even atoms anymore. Nara wasn't afraid for herself. She was afraid for all of them. She kept reviewing the same old Terran log, recorded 612 years ago, the last signal ever received from Earth. It wasn't a distress call. It wasn't a cry for help, it was a choice, a soft voice, calm, human. We have gone beyond the threshold. What we carry now is not meant for others. This is our burden. We will seal it. We will sleep, and we will not return, unless someone is foolish enough to wake the dark. That was it. No coordinates, no warning, no map, just a quiet decision to vanish. And now, someone had woken the dark. The exile was still silent, hovering in its orbit near the Perseid Rift, but deep space scanners across dozens of sectors began to notice new patterns. Shadows. Not like regular ships. They didn't travel through space. They simply appeared. No warp trails, no jump gates, just sudden presence. And always, the same signal pattern followed. Remember, on the planet Jaren 5, a Virexian mining colony received one such signal. The governor, a cruel man with silver bones and fire tongue implants, ordered a full blackout. He didn't want panic, but something strange happened that night. The stars above the colony disappeared, not behind clouds. Gone, as if someone had erased them from the sky. And then the lights inside every home, every room, every ship, all went dark. People screamed. They rushed outside and saw it, hovering above the capital city. A ship, black like the exile, but bigger. Its shape made no sense. Parts of it moved in directions that didn't exist. It had no engines, but space around it shimmered. A deep, mechanical hum echoed, not through ears, but through bones. No attack came. It just hovered. And then the dreams began. That night, every living being on Jaren 5, humans, Virexians, clones, machines, had the same vision. A vast plain of white, a tower rising into nothing, and a voice whispering, "Do you remember who we were?" When they woke, the ship was gone. So was the governor, and in his place, etched into the metal floor of his palace, were 3 words: "You were warned." Across the Empire, fear turned into madness. Sects formed. Some worshipped the return of the Terrans as gods. Others believed they were demons. Many committed mass suicide, believing they had trespassed against something divine. The Emperor himself grew paranoid. He shut himself in the sky room, alone, with no guards, no advisors. His 3 hearts beat loud in his chest as he watched replays of the destroyed fleets again and again. He spoke to himself over and over. They were extinct. They were extinct. But the data didn't lie. And then came the worst part. Earth reappeared. Not in the maps, not in signals, in reality. One moment, Sol System was dead space, nothing but broken coordinates. The next, Earth was back. Scanners across the galaxy pinged the same result. Blue planet. Atmosphere intact. Radiation. Stable. No activity, no ships, no satellites, no orbiting junk. Just Earth, sitting in the void like it had never been gone. But it didn't make sense. The planet didn't spin. Clouds didn't move. Time didn't flow. Earth was there. But it wasn't alive. It was like a memory being played back on loop. And in orbit above Earth, they saw it. A ring. Massive. Ancient. Not built with Virexian logic or Terran architecture. It was made of something else. Stone, maybe. But pulsing with strange light. And on the ring's surface, glowing in soft white letters, the lock holds until it breaks. The Empire panicked. A full, Council was called. Even the hidden lords, the ones who had not shown their faces in 500 years, appeared. They asked Nara, trembling. "What is the lock?" She answered without hesitation. "It's what humanity was trying to keep inside." One counselor shouted, "What are they hiding?" She replied, "Themselves." Then came the final transmission. Not from Earth, from beneath Earth, a signal so strong it broke into every device, every implant, every screen across the galaxy. Every child heard it. Every old one felt it. It was not a voice. It was a heartbeat, and it shook the stars. Inside the Imperial Palace, the Emperor collapsed. His mind touched something it was never meant to feel. He saw a city made of glass, burning. He saw a ship sailing through time covered in names. He saw a single child standing in a room full of mirrors whispering to himself, "We went too far." And then, nothing, no signal, no data, just blackness, and a word carved into every wall of the Empire's ships without tools, without damage, just there, as if it had always been, return. The meaning was clear. This wasn't just a warning anymore. It was a countdown, and it had begun. The word return stayed like a curse stitched into the very air of the Empire. No matter how many times they tried to wipe it from their ships, erase it from data logs, or silence it from the comms, it came back, burned into consoles, floating, in the eyes of dead crew, whispered by children in their sleep. Return. 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 The Varexian Empire, proud and cruel for 10,000 years, had no answer. No weapon, no strategy. They tried everything. Sealed systems, digital purges, even ritual exorcisms used in dark space centuries ago. But nothing worked. Something had shifted in the universe. Not just in one place. Everywhere. A research station near the Dark Veil reported seeing 2 moons one night, when they only had one. When they checked their records the next day, the second moon had never existed. But one of their crew was missing. No name in the logs, no birth certificate, not even memories, only an empty bed, as if someone had never been born. In another sector, a star blinked, and never blinked back on. Entire. Planets lost their sun. They didn't freeze, they didn't burn, they just floated, confused, like a dream losing shape. People whispered in shadows. The humans didn't build warships. They built reality cages, and the cage was breaking. Nara Valari, locked deep in her crystal chamber, could feel it too. Her mind itched like it was being pulled from behind her skull. Every night she saw dreams that weren't hers. Cities with no gravity, oceans floating in the sky, people made of light screaming silently. It wasn't madness, it was memory. Not hers, humanity's. The exile was no longer alone. Across the edges of known space, more of them began to appear. Ships that didn't reflect light. Ships that didn't need engines. Ships that weren't even there until you looked, and then somehow had always been there. Each one different. One looked like a silver sword, hovering in the void. One resembled a broken clock, ticking backward, distorting time itself. One was just a sphere of glass, but inside it, you could see Earth. Not now, before. Old, pure, green. Each ship carried the same message, repeating silently through the stars. We remember. The Empire, desperate to survive, gathered its last loyal warlords. The best of the best. Elite strategists, reality benders, weaponsmiths of forbidden tech. They created something new, something dangerous. They called it Project Unmaker, not a ship, not a bomb. A creature, built from stolen Terran DNA, grown in anti-time chambers, raised on simulations of war and hate. Its brain carried the memory of every Empire victory. Its body was forged from void steel, stronger than neutronite, resistant even to distortion fields. They gave it only one purpose: hunt the exile. It launched from the void cradle with a scream that shook stars. Every planet it passed, Animals fled. Machines shorted. Gravity twisted slightly. Nara, hearing it scream from 1,000,000 kilometers away, collapsed in her chamber. She tasted blood in her mouth. She whispered, "They just made it worse." And she was right. The Unmaker found the boy. Exile. It hovered in front of it like a predator. For a moment, nothing moved. 2 old ghosts. The last breath of an ancient human empire. And the new monster that wanted to kill it. Then the Unmaker spoke. Not through language, through thought. "You are the past. I am the now. I unmake." The exile said nothing, but the stars around it screamed. Light bent, space shook. And then something terrible happened. The Unmaker began to change. Its shape trembled, its void steel cracked, its memory failed. It forgot where it was, then it forgot what it was. Then, with one last silent blink, it forgot it existed. And it was gone. Not destroyed. Unwritten. The exile hadn't fired a shot, it had simply defended reality. The Empire now had no monsters left, no gods, just fear. The Emperor, now half mad, half silent, stared into the crystal maps of the galaxy. One by one, systems were going dark, not because of war, because they were being removed. Planet here, a station there, a name in a history book. Even memories were slipping. Some Virexian families woke up and couldn't remember their children. Others remembered children who never existed. Empires don't fear death, but they fear forgetting. And forgetting had begun. Then came the final signal. Earth, this time, not as a locked image or static echo, but alive. The planet began to spin again. The bow. Clouds moved, oceans breathed, but no cities were visible, no life signs, just nature, pure, clean, new, and above Earth, floating in silence, a new ship, larger than the exile, so large, in fact, that it cast a shadow on the moon. It wasn't black. It wasn't even visible in the normal way. You had to look twice, stare hard, and then realize it had always been there. It sent no warning. No signal. Just one word appeared floating across every mind. Judgment. Panic took hold of the Empire. Rebellions broke out. Colonies fled from their home systems. Slave races began to fight for their own survival, seeing the Empire crumbling. Priests burned ancient scrolls. Scientists cried, knowing they had opened. A door they couldn't close, the Empire begged for help. From who? From what? Even their enemies were silent now, because they too saw the writing on the stars. Nara, now free, escaped by a few remaining humans secretly hiding among the Empire's deepest levels, sat in a small ship, heading toward Earth. Not to attack, not to spy, just to see. She had to know. Why? Why did humanity leave? Why did they build monsters? And what were they guarding? As her ship approached, the exile moved aside, not blocking, welcoming. The ring around Earth opened. A small passage. She entered. What she saw inside could never be explained with words. She saw memories, living. She saw a version of Earth where machines cried and mountains breathed. She saw children made of light playing with time like it was a toy. She saw a city made of dreams. And then she saw the truth. At the center of the planet, beneath the crust, beyond the fire, a mind, old massive, sleeping, human, but no longer. It was what they became, what they feared, what they sealed. And the final message echoed into her thoughts. We are not your enemy, but we remember what we were, and we will not allow it to return. Tears filled her eyes. It wasn't a warning, it was mercy. Earth had locked itself away, not to hide from others, but to protect others from itself. The exile, the ring, the shadow ships. They weren't weapons, they were keepers, guards, sentinels, because once, long ago, humanity won. They reached the peak of science, of evolution, of power. And when they saw what they had become, they chose to disappear, to sleep, to forget. But now, disturbed, they were waking, not in anger, in sadness, because the Empire had come too close to the cage, and the cage was cracking. When Nara Valari came back from Earth, she wasn't the same. She didn't speak for days, she didn't eat much. Her eyes, once sharp and full of questions, now looked like they had seen the end of time, and come back with no answers, just tears. The humans hadn't spoken to her with words. They didn't threaten, they didn't promise. They just showed her what they had become, what they had locked away. The Varexian Empire waited for her to say something, anything, that might save them. The last Terran-blooded woman in their records now carrying secrets no one else understood. But she said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. Across the galaxy, more and more systems were blinking out. Not through war, not through death, through erasure. One day a planet was there. Next day, just space, no debris, no signals, like the world had never existed. The Empire's greatest thinkers finally accepted it. This was not war. This was correction. And they were on the wrong side of it. Entire fleets surrendered to silence. Generals abandoned their armies and vanished into dark sectors. The Emperor, who once ruled with 3 hearts and 0 mercy, now sat alone in the ruins of his sky palace. He spoke to ghosts. Sometimes he laughed. Other times he screamed, clutching his face like something was crawling inside it. When his advisors entered his throne room for the last time, they found only his robe. And a single word scratched into the floor, forgiven. But the galaxy knew better. This wasn't forgiveness, this was release. Meanwhile, Nara made one final decision. A message, one that would travel to every edge of space, through every signal net, into every broken outpost and forgotten moon. She broadcast her voice soft and trembling. To those who still hear me, I bring no hope. Only truth. We made them. Once, a long time ago, we were them. And then we weren't. Because we saw the cost of becoming gods. We saw the end of time, the collapse of stars, the shattering of what is real. And we couldn't allow. So we built prisons, not for others, for us. And then we slept. But you woke us, you poked the dark. And now it stares back. I don't know if we will all survive this. But I know one thing. They are not angry. They are not cruel. They are just tired of repeating the same mistake. So they will clean the board. And maybe, after that, there will be silence. The message ended. It echoed in space for only 1 second. But the silence afterward lasted hours. Then Earth changed again. Not slowly. All at once. It began to rise. Not physically, but like a thought waking up from a deep sleep. Like a god stretching, after 1,000 years. The ocean shimmered with colors no one had names for. The land grew, reshaping like it was remembering its original form. And the ring above it, it cracked. Not with sound. Not with light, with time. Seconds stuttered. Stars blinked twice. Planets aged 5 years in an instant, then reversed. Children forgot their names. Old women remembered things they'd never lived. Something was waking up, and it wasn't human anymore. It was what humanity had become after they stopped needing flesh, after they stopped needing time, after they walked beyond physics and returned with scars deeper than space. It was the first mind, and it was no longer sleeping. The exile, orbiting calmly, sent its final signal. This will be the last cycle. Then it vanished. No warp trail, no goodbye, just gone. The ring around Earth began to pulse, 1 pulse every minute. With each beat, another part of the galaxy disappeared, not in fear, not in fire, in understanding. Planets bowed, stars dimmed with respect, Even machines, once cold and logical, hummed with something like grief. Nara stood at the edge of her observation window on the Terran Watcher ship, watching Earth from afar. Her escorts, half machine, half memory, stood behind her, saying nothing. She whispered, "What happens now?" One of the escorts, shaped like a man but made of shifting light, replied, "Now, the cleaning begins." She turned. "What are you cleaning?" He smiled sadly. "The lies." And she understood. The empire, the wars, the flags, the control. All of it had been a story, told again and again, written by those who thought they were gods. But in the end, even gods get tired of pretending. Even reality must reset. A great white light began to rise from Earth, not blinding, not hot, soft, like dawn after a long, endless night. It reached the moons first, then the dark matter rings nearby. Then it began to spread, slowly, like a wave. But it did not destroy. It rewrote. Everywhere the light touched, things became still. Peaceful, quiet, not dead, just still, like waiting, a pause between breaths. Some tried to run. No. Ships moved. Some tried to hide. Nowhere to go. Some dropped to their knees and prayed. The light passed over them gently, like a hand brushing tears from a child's face. And then, something unexpected happened. It reached a Virexian refugee ship. Children, mostly floating in Sector 12. Too small to matter, too weak to fight. And instead of disappearing, the ship changed. The metal turned soft. The engines reshaped. The children looked outside and saw stars they'd never seen before. Planets. Not on any map, colors not in any book. They weren't erased. They were moved. To a better version of the galaxy. Not a perfect one, but one without the burden of the Empire's sins. One without the infection of ambition. One where life could begin again, without the chains of history. And that's when it became clear. This was not extinction. This was correction. The first mind was not a weapon. It was a gardener, cutting the rot, letting the rest grow. As the light moved on, more ships were spared, not based on power, not based on species, based on choice. Did you build to harm? Did you rule through fear, or did you try just once to be kind? Those who tried, even in failure, were rewritten into the new verse. Those who didn't? Unwritten. No punishment, just absence. Peaceful. Final. Nara watched the last of the old empire vanish. No scream. No war. Just silence. And then Earth, now glowing with a light so pure it looked like a second star, dimmed. The ring closed. The pulsing stopped, and everything was still. A new map of the galaxy formed in her visor. Different names, different stars, different rules. But one line remained, burned into every system. Guard the dark. Never awaken what sleeps. The exile never returned, nor did the other shadow ships. They had done their job and vanished. Like old dreams at sunrise, Nara became the first chronicler of the new era. Not a queen, not a general, just a witness. She wrote down what she had seen, not to warn, but to remember. Because that was the one lesson the humans left behind. Memory is protection. Forgetting leads to pride. Pride leads to opening doors better left closed. As years passed, people told stories of Earth, not as a planet, but as a myth, a dream, a symbol of what we once were, of what we could become, of what must never be repeated. And somewhere, in the deepest part of the void, a single line floated on quiet waves of time. Not a threat, not a promise, just a truth. We didn't build ships. We built monsters and to guard against our own reflection. And then the stars sang softly again, because the danger had passed, and the galaxy once again could breathe.